So yeah, I thought it was about time I made a video like this to highlight something pretty decent that the CW has achieved with one of its Arrowverse shows in quite a long time. And not only that, with regards to the conception of today's video, Superman and Lois Season 1 deserves this recognition. But at the same time, through highlighting the success of Superman and Lois Season 1, in turn it also highlights the downfalls of the CW's other Arrowverse shows, in an issue that has only gained momentum, I'd say, as the years roll on by. And just a disclaimer here, so not to confuse anyone with that statement, that's not to rope in a show like Stargirl with that initial comment, because personally, I love Stargirl Season 1 because it also completely differentiates itself from the other Arrowverse shows in not only production quality, but also its cinematography and also engaging story, just like another show, Superman and Lois Season 1. But we can't forget, the DC Universe streaming service that is no longer around first created and made Stargirl Season 1 what it is, not the CW. All the CW did before it purchased Stargirl for Season 2 was to air the Season 1 episodes on the network alongside DC Universe airing it first, of course. So Stargirl aside, even though Season 2 will be the CW's first proper season, albeit with apparently no differences, that technically does make Superman and Lois officially the first Arrowverse show to finally step out of those procedural approaches and genetic makeup that the other Arrowverse superhero shows have been following for years. And if we're being honest here, guys, the changes that Superman and Lois has introduced into the Arrowverse felt like the equivalent of holding your breath for 20 more seconds than what you should have underwater and feeling that breath of life type fresh air like nothing else ever experienced before when you finally rise above the water. Now, whether you are a die-hard fan or not of the current ongoing Arrowverse shows such as The Flash Season 7, Batwoman Season 2, Legends of Tomorrow and Supergirl, etc., there is a clear difference to Superman and Lois and its sibling shows that we just cannot be ignorant to. And I may as well say this now, because if you can't really see that difference, let me rephrase that. If you choose not to see this difference, then maybe this video isn't really for you. Now, as objective as I can speak here, and trust me, when I say objective, I specifically mean objectively speaking without bias. So the Arrowverse shows and the way they are made, filmed, are just most certainly past their sell-by date, and they need to follow suit with Superman and Lois as soon as possible. And excuse me for a second while I just rave about how I find that analogy kind of perfect when talking about the other Arrowverse shows, just because it rings so true to me. It really does. It just explains the situation I'm trying to articulate with the state of all of the shows so well. I mean, you can eat something or whatever when it's past its sell-by date, of course. You can still consume it, so to speak, but it's no longer at its best. It's somewhat viewed as something that you should probably, swap out with something new, something fresh, shall we say. And that comparison to the new arrival of Superman and Lois's approach just hits the nail on the head for me. And I just think that the majority, or what I hope to be the majority of us, can agree that the long dragged out format of 22 episode Arrowverse seasons for the sake of getting those commercials are a detriment to the shows itself. And what was it they say about quality over quantity again? No, wait, I forgot. We need those extra episodes for the commercials. Which then what comes with that in turn is that sometimes it literally gives us 3 episodes that even the showrunner himself announces as an interlude aspect to the season. Now, why on earth would you deliberately put a boring-ass 3-episode long interlude in one of your Arrowverse main plot season shows? Are you trying to sabotage your show? I mean, I get how filler episodes aren't always bad. Trust me, I do. And how they can be used to progress some character development and exploration. But this ain't it, Chief, as they say. And this personifies the frustrations I have with the non-engaging Arrowverse seasons these days. I mean, for example, just ask most The Flash fans what they thought of The Flash Season 7 3-episode interlude from episode 12 onwards. Yeah. For example, you just wouldn't get that on Superman and Lois. And ironically enough, even though it's on the CW, if Superman and Lois pulled that same stunt in its first season, it would just feel out of this world. Like, it'd be like, what's going on? Why did you do that? But even with that said, seasons such as The Flash season 7, even with a shorter episode length this season due to the pandemic, coming in at 18 episodes in The Flash season 7, it just really suffered to tell an interesting story this year, and fans are only just getting into the 7th season in its final 4 episodes. And I don't know about you guys, but if your audience is only starting to appreciate the latter 4 episodes of a season, then you honestly have a disaster on your hands when it comes to running a show. And even then, the latter of the season really wasn't that great either. And I can't speak, let me say this as well, I can't speak for everyone, of course, and I'm not pretending to. That if there's any comments saying that, I'm just not. But running this channel, covering various superhero shows for years now, a large majority of them being Arrowverse related, I think I'd like to say I get a sense and insight of what the Arrowverse audience are feeling after thousands upon thousands of comments as my reviews roll out week by week. And as of late, it's really, really going down the trash can. Now, while funnily enough at the same time, there's a minuscule growing appreciation because of a newly turned leaf of, yes, you guessed it, Superman and Lois. So guys, with that being said, there is obviously a light at the end of the tunnel with the Arrowverse shows for fans, due to Superman and Lois stepping up to the mark. And even if you disagree with me there, which is completely fine, I really welcome comments like that, what is very important to point out here is that at the very least, it is trying to, and in a lot of people's books, has succeeded even, to at the very least, a very notable difference in the right direction compared to that of, the other CW shows. However, though, with the introduction of Superman and Lois, of course, it also reveals a bit of a conundrum at the same time, just with the CW as a whole, being that we still have a few years left, really, with this network dishing out to us a show of a higher caliber, or shows, Superman and Lois, Stargirl, all while maintaining the outdated shows at the same time. I mean, a couple of years, meaning, for example, The Flash maintaining its approach until potentially season 9, and the showrunner Eric Wallace has recently said that he believes it has several seasons more in it, meaning that he would potentially go to supernatural levels of seasons if he could. Also, when I'm saying all this, do bear in mind, I'm not saying that these shows or all of the shows don't have a fan base and an audience who still very much so enjoy them every week, such as The Flash and Batwoman and stuff. I'm just genuinely observing the interesting situation that's unfolding. And we have an evolving show on this network, with other completely stagnant and if not declining shows on the other hand. I'm just trying to point out it's such a weird mix, and the main message of this video should start to really becoming apparent by now. But before anyone says it, before you right there commenting right now says, video over, Superman and Lois has that HBO Max budget, or this is unfair to the other shows, Superman and Lois get so much more money compared to the other Arrowverse shows. Believe it or not, the visual effects of Superman and Lois season 1 doesn't really have all too much to do with this video. And why? Well, because you can make good seasons of existing Arrowverse shows without an enhanced budget. And they can achieve this through what Superman and Lois is also doing, which at the end of the day is better writing, of which as a result makes us care about the characters and the story a lot more, and also the pacing is leagues better than what we're currently witnessing on some of the other shows, such as the aforementioned Flash Season 7, being today's perfect candidate and example for the contrast. Now, every single week in my review comment sections, without failure, let me repeat that, without failure, I get repeat comments in where fans point out that there's a night and day difference of The Flash airing first, and then Superman and Lois airing afterwards, to the point of where it is dumbfounding to the viewer in terms of the quality differences. Now, I do want to put a disclaimer out there. My comment sections aren't filled with, oh, Flash and Batwoman haters. I get genuine, sincere comments saying to me, I love The Flash, I've tried to love The Flash recently, and maybe I was in denial, but I can't help but know that this is suffering. What I'm trying to address to you is this isn't just me reading comments that's fueling my own, what some people may call it, an agenda here. It's not. There are more people than just me feeling this, genuine, heartfelt comments saying they wish the shows on the Arrowverse would match up to something of the quality of Superman and Lois. And they just can't really fathom why they can't, or even if they don't have the same cinematic approaches, obviously, why they just still aren't being written better, they're paced better. It's really dumbfounding people now, and it just really isn't, or like these complaints or criticism of these other shows, it's really not a vocal minority. I really want to make that one clear. But now I do want to acknowledge another potential defense that could be raised by various fans, being I know that some people will want to use this as a partial excuse too, in that perhaps it's unfair of me to compare a show's first season, in this case Superman and Lois season 1, to a show that is many years in with its 7th season. There are various fans who may like to use that as the sole reason as to why Superman and Lois Season 1 is good, and that is because to them, apparently The Flash Season 1 and that of shows like Arrow Season 1 in its first and early seasons, mainly the first 2, were really good. And, I really enjoyed them, don't get me wrong, which thus must mean, according to these fans, that Superman and Lois' first season is also only good because, well, it's in its first season and it will decline from there on out just like the other shows, which is something I believe is far from the truth. For that argument's sake, I do want to use other shows as an example to how a first season or second season's quote-unquote magic isn't all that makes an Arrowverse superhero season work and then inevitably decline. I mean, Superman and Lois brings much more than a cinematography change to the screen, which just proves to you that you need more than that to be successful, and changing aspect ratio and some color grading changes are more creative changes versus that of actually costing tons more money. For example, Batwoman had actually introduced a good old black bars aspect ratio change that is intended to give a refreshing take and somewhat more cinematic difference to what the other Arrowverse shows came before it, and way before Superman and Lois even aired, I'll have you know. But then guess what? For the most part, that's all it actually is. A facade. It didn't really do everything else that Superman and Lois did do. So, take away the black bars, and Batwoman is still very much so what a lot of superhero fans see when they look at the CW shows, the CW stigma, if you will. Put the black bars on Legends of Tomorrow, it's still Legends of Tomorrow. Batwoman is still not all that successful and still just as critiqued because of its other downfalls, crippled by its writing and pacing that just keeps up the typical Arrowverse approach, just with a new filter on it, trying to give you that illusion of, this is our attempt at making something more cinematic and apparently increased in quality, all without doing so. And yes, I know apparently Batwoman Season 2's back half has supposedly gotten better. I do want to acknowledge that to be completely fair game here, but in my opinion, it was a very low bar, guys. I mean, listen to that part again. It was a very low bar. And if you completely disagree with me here, and you're a huge Batwoman fan, then seriously, with all due respect, then you do you. I'm happy for you. Seriously, no sarcasm here. That's not what this is about. But generally speaking, and even with that said, it to me, it doesn't compare, and to a lot of other fans as well. It just doesn't compare with the engagement that Superman and Lois is managing to achieve. And also, before anyone else says it, the pandemic didn't just all of a sudden cancel out good writing and pacing. The pandemic isn't really an excuse to reach for when there's plenty of shows that were also filmed during the pandemic that still achieved a level of quality shows like The Flash just hasn't, but could have. I don't know, I just keep seeing the pandemic as this grand excuse for things, but in terms of what we're actually talking about here today in this video, it really isn't, with all due respect to the struggles productions did indeed face in the midst of the pandemic. However, with all this being said, Superman and Lois is not some flawless show. I do want to point that out as well, far from it even. It most certainly isn't, but it's still leagues beyond what we have with the other shows, Stargirl aside, of course. And that's what all the CW shows now have to strive for. And I really do feel like it's not really an excuse anymore either. All while this is being said, we are getting much better produced shows out there, more and more these days. Overall, say what you will about various HBO Max shows or Marvel shows, but the game this is really important. Like, the game is indeed changing in terms of presentation and writing, that all while these new shiny shows also have issues, it still then makes the Arrowverse and its existing shows and their issues look like Stone Age versions of issues, if that even makes sense at all. Now, while Superman and Lois may be going as far as saying unprecedented for the CW, it's also a result of the identification of what we're discussing, the need for innovation in an already existing formula. Now, Todd Helbing, the showrunner for Superman and Lois, once said, "Many aspects of Superman and Lois were approached as if it was a feature film, such as the aspect ratio, cinematography, and production design." And then this is the very quote: "We are competing with shows on cable and streamers. We wanted to be able to do that and offer audiences something of equal quality." Now, even though that quote from the showrunner speaks more to the production side of things, reading in between the lines there from what the showrunner has said over time, it speaks to the larger need for change overall. And that can be seen evidently episode to episode compared to that of the other Arrowverse shows. Because that very quote from Todd Helbing there is the pivotal and crucial point of this video. He knows and knew things needed to change when he was signing on to showrun Superman and Lois, and there are other shows of better quality to compete with in today's landscape, so he just knew a change needed to be made. And as a result of that, in my opinion, especially when we're watching this compared to the other shows, the same really needs to be done across the board. And honestly, that's probably just where I'm going to end this video, on that message. Things need to change, and they are, to be fair, beginning to change. But we also have shows that are getting to the point of where it almost feels like this secondhand embarrassment when it stood next to its sibling shows. And yes, again, I'm sorry, but to show that contrast, because this one really hits the nail on the head and it's already set up for you, when The Flash aired on Tuesday nights every week, or most weeks for the past few months, with Superman and Lois after it, yeah, let me just say that the need for change and innovation to the Arrowverse after watching both episodes, beginning with The Flash on a Tuesday night and then Superman and Lois right after, wow, it was woefully apparent. And as I said, I was getting comments saying, this episode was amazing, especially right after that Flash episode. You get what I'm trying to say. So I would love to know your thoughts on this, guys. I know I went on a bit of a tangent in this video, but I just wanted to make a whole video dedicated to what Superman and Lois is achieving. Well, while it isn't perfect, it's still a massive, like, several rungs up the ladder compared to the other Arrowverse shows, and I just wanted a little kind of case file on it, so you guys can discuss it down in the comments below as well, give your feelings and thoughts on my feelings, and I read every single comment, so I'm going to be very interested in seeing your responses to this very video. And as I said, I still mean all due respect to the other shows. I still do love a lot of these shows. It's just I don't necessarily love what they're doing anymore, especially as with what I've mentioned in this video as to the reasons why, because I just don't feel like there's much of an excuse anymore for the kind of poor writing and pacing that we're getting when other shows, which are in the same flipping universe, by the way, are leagues better in its writing and pacing. Look, at the end of the day, I'm going to call it. So like the video, guys, if you did enjoy it, I'd really appreciate that. Subscribe for more Superman and Lois movie and DC TV and Marvel and everything like that. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you people of the DC multiverse in the next video. Goodbye.